Shark attacks are rare but shocking when they occur. This video vividly narrates these terrifying incidents, with such disturbing scenes that you might reconsider returning to the ocean after watching it. The graphic content will leave a lasting impact, highlighting the unexpected nature of these attacks. A group of 6 friends embarked on a sailing adventure around Maui, one of Hawaii's biggest and most remote islands. They had no idea their trip would be more adventurous than they could imagine. Although Alex Duran was the last person to know about the planned trip, little effort was made to convince him to join the adventure trip because he was a chronic sea lover. The friends, bonded by years of adventures and shared experiences, had embarked on a sailing trip across a remote part of the Pacific Ocean. The sturdy boat was their home for the next 2 weeks. The first few days were idyllic. The friends laughed, reminisced, and enjoyed the breathtaking beauty of the open ocean. They fished, swam, and marveled at the diverse marine life Alex identified with enthusiasm. The journey was a much-needed break from their hectic lives, offering a rare opportunity to reconnect and explore the unknown. However, the mood shifted on the 4th day as they navigated through a particularly isolated stretch of water. The sky turned an ominous shade of gray, and the wind picked up, ruffling the ocean's calm surface. Tom, who was in charge of steering the yacht, was focused, his experienced eyes scanning the horizon and the boat's instruments. The sudden change in weather was unexpected but not entirely uncommon in these parts. He only wants everyone to stay alert as they seem to be approaching a storm. As the waves grew more prominent and the boat began to rock more violently, the friends secured loose items and donned life jackets. The storm hit with a ferocity that took them by surprise. Without warning, a loud, grating noise reverberated through the hull. The boat lurched violently, throwing the friends off balance. Tom's heart sank. He knew that sound all too well. They had been hit, and Tom yelled over the roar for them to check the damage. Alex and one of his friends, Mark, rushed below deck, wading through ankle-deep water already seeping in. Their faces went pale as they saw the gash along the bottom of the hull. Water was pouring in at an alarming rate. They had no choice but to abandon the ship. The group quickly gathered the essentials: a first aid kit, emergency rations, flares, and the emergency beacon. They hurried to deploy the life raft, the situation growing more desperate with each passing second. As they inflated the raft and began to load it, the boat's distress signals triggered, sending a series of flashes and sounds into the stormy night. The signals, however, attracted more than just potential rescuers. One by one, they climbed into the raft, the realization of their predicament sinking in. The boat was going down, and they were now adrift in the ocean. As they floated away from the sinking boat, a new threat emerged from the deep. Dark shapes circled beneath the surface, drawn by the vibrations and scent of the wreckage. Mark, a marine biologist, recognized the danger immediately. He quickly told them to stay calm and keep their movements minimal because sharks are attracted to noise and splashing. By then, the storm had stopped, and the friends huddled together in the small raft, their eyes scanning the water for any sign of the predators. They stayed like this until the night became pitch black. The only light came from their emergency lantern because their phones went down with the boat. The friends took turns keeping watch, their senses heightened by fear and adrenaline. Around midnight, the first real test of their resolve came. A large shadow appeared beneath the raft, followed by a bump that nearly toppled them into the water. Mark, gripping the fishing spear tightly, jabbed at the shadow, hitting something solid. The shark recoiled, but it wasn't alone. More shadows joined the fray, their dorsal fins cutting through the water like knives. The friends fought to maintain their composure, each struggling with fear and fatigue. Alex kept a close eye on everyone's condition, aware panic and injury could be as deadly as the sharks. Dawn was still hours away and the night seemed endless. The attacks were sporadic but relentless, each one testing their endurance. A shark bit into the raft's side at one point, causing a small tear. Alex, quick to act, used the repair kit to patch the hole, his hands shaking but steady. They can't do this forever, so Tom suggests they utilize the flares they've got from the vessel. The first light of dawn brought a sliver of hope. The sky turned from black to deep blue, then to sunrise's soft pink and orange. The friends' spirits lifted slightly, though their situation was still dire. They prepared the flares, waiting for the right moment to send a signal. As the sun rose, painting the ocean in a palette of colors, they fired the first flare. It shot into the sky, a bright red streak against the pastel dawn. They watched it arc and descend, praying that someone, somewhere, would see it. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for a response. The sharks were still present but seemed less aggressive in the daylight. The friends took turns firing flares, each one a beacon of their hope and desperation. Finally, as the sun climbed higher, a distant sound reached their ears, the unmistakable hum of an aircraft. They looked up, squinting against the bright sky, and saw a small plane heading their way. Cheers of relief erupted from the raft as they waved and signaled frantically. The plane circled overhead, its pilot spotting the flares in the life raft. The friends watched as it dipped its wings in acknowledgement before flying off, presumably to summon help. Their ordeal was far from over, but knowing that rescue was on its way gave them the strength to persevere. Hours later, a rescue boat appeared on the horizon, speeding towards them. The friends' exhaustion melted into overwhelming relief as they were pulled aboard, one by one. The seasoned professionals' crew quickly assessed their condition and provided water and blankets. As they sped towards the nearest island, the friends clung to each other, grateful to be alive. The ordeal had tested them in ways they could never have imagined, but it had also reinforced their bond. They had faced the abyss together and survived. They didn't stay for long before returning to the U.S. to get their lives back to normalcy. On a sunny day in Silicon Valley, employees from a leading software company took advantage of the clear skies to plan a corporate team-building retreat at a California beach. They gathered for a weekend of activities to foster cooperation and camaraderie, enjoying high spirits and engaging in beach ball and other water games. The highlight of the retreat was a beach activity organized by the retreat facilitator, Greg Lewis. The team was split into smaller groups and tasked with building makeshift rafts from provided materials. The goal was to paddle out to a buoy anchored about 200 meters from the shore and return, all while racing against other teams. It was a fun and competitive exercise to encourage teamwork and innovation. As the groups worked on their rafts, laughter and friendly banter filled the air. Sarah, the project manager, was in charge of her team, which included Jake, the software engineer, Emma, the marketing specialist, Carlos, the financial analyst, and Lily, the HR coordinator. They worked efficiently, drawing on their diverse skills to construct a sturdy raft. With their raft complete, the team carried it to the water's edge. The sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the ocean. They pushed off, paddling vigorously towards the buoy. The other teams followed suit, and soon the beach was alive with the splashes and shouts of competing groups. About halfway to the buoy, Sarah noticed something unusual. The water around them seemed to darken, and a faint shadow passed beneath their raft. She dismissed it as a trick of the light, focusing instead on the task. She, however, urged her team to keep paddling so they could win. Just as they reached the buoy, the water erupted in a frenzy. A massive shape surged from the depths, colliding with their raft. The impact force threw the team into the water, their shouts of surprise quickly turning to screams of terror. It was a shark, a great white, its massive jaws snapping shut on Jake's leg. Panic set in as the team thrashed in the water, trying to scramble back onto the raft. In the chaos, their communication devices, meant for coordinating with other teams and the facilitator, were submerged and rendered useless. Sarah managed to grab a piece of the shattered raft and clung to it, scanning the water for her teammates. She saw Jake struggling to swim, his leg bleeding from a deep gash. Emma and Carlos held onto another fragment of the raft. Lily, meanwhile, was swimming toward a nearby buoy, her face determined. Sarah called out to Jake, and fortunately it worked, bringing him back to his senses. Jake reached her, his face pale with fear and pain because the shark was still in the water. The shark circled them, its dorsal fin cutting through the water. They needed to move fast. Sarah took charge, her mind racing with potential solutions. Then an idea struck. They could utilize the raft pieces to stay afloat and paddle it slowly. They began their slow, agonizing journey back to the beach, the shark shadowing them the entire way. The distance, which had seemed so short during the race, now felt like an impossible expanse. Every second was a battle against the rising panic and the relentless predator stalking them. As they neared the shore, the shark made another pass, bumping into Carlos's piece of the raft. He lost his grip and went under, resurfacing a moment later with a scream as the shark's teeth grazed his side. Two of them reached out to Carlos, pulling him closer to the shore before the shark could get back at him. Together they struggled towards the shore, where the water was too shallow for the shark to follow. Finally, their feet touched the sandy bottom. They stumbled onto the beach, exhausted and bleeding. The rest of the retreat participants and facilitators rushed to their aid, their faces etched with shock and horror. One of the facilitators quickly rushed to their makeshift camp to call for emergency services. He relayed their coordinates and the details of the attack. Help was on the way, but it would take time. Returning to the beach, they found the group huddled together, anxiously awaiting their return. The injured tended to do their best with the limited supplies they had. Jake's leg was bandaged, and Carlos's side was cleaned and wrapped. Minutes passed without rescue, mainly because the location was remote. The facilitators and high company officials took turns keeping watch. Relief came at last when a helicopter appeared on the horizon. They waved frantically, signaling their location. The aircraft circled once before landing a short distance away. Paramedics and rescuers poured out, quickly assessing the situation and tending to the injured. As they were airlifted to safety, Sarah reflected on the ordeal. The team-building retreat had taken a disastrous turn, but it had also revealed her team's strength and resilience. They had faced a terrifying and unpredictable threat together and emerged battered but alive. In the days that followed, the story of their survival spread, drawing sympathy and admiration. The shark attack was a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictability and the fragility of human life in the face of nature's raw power. Yet it also underscored the importance of teamwork and the human spirit's ability to endure even the most harrowing challenges. Back at the company, the team members were hailed as heroes. Their bond, forged in the crucible of survival, had grown stronger. They returned to their work with renewed purpose and a deeper appreciation for each other. The incident didn't stop the company from having a retreat, but a safer location was always considered. In the remote waters of the South Pacific, an oceanographic research vessel carried a team of scientists studying shark migration patterns to uncover the mysteries of these majestic predators. Led by Dr. Rachel Foster, the team included marine biologist Dr. James Rivera, shark behaviorist Dr. Emily Chen, oceanographer Dr. Marcus Powell, and field technician Kyle Dawson. Each member brought a wealth of expertise to the mission, and their camaraderie had grown over weeks of working together. The day started like any other, with the team collecting data, tagging sharks, and deploying underwater cameras. The weather was calm, and the sea was a vast expanse of blue stretching in all directions. Spirits were high as they prepared for another successful day of research. After reviewing the data on her tablet, Emily talked to the group. They seemed to have some great footage from their previous tagging expedition, so the next step is to plan a dive accordingly. As the team busied themselves with preparations, the sky darkened ominously. Rachel, ever vigilant, checked the weather forecast. A storm was predicted to pass nearby, but it seemed far enough away not to pose a threat. Still, she felt a twinge of unease, so she warned the group about the weather if it started to look bad. By midday, the waves had grown choppier and the wind picked up, sending sprays of salty water over the deck. The team hurried to secure their equipment and brace for the worsening conditions. They had faced storms before, but the ocean's unpredictability always warranted caution. Suddenly, without warning, a rogue wave loomed on the horizon, a towering wall of water moving with terrifying speed. Rachel barely had time to shout a warning before the wave crashed into the vessel, capsizing it and throwing the crew into the tumultuous sea. The world turned into a whirlpool of chaos. Rachel struggled to the surface, gasping for air. She saw the overturned hull of their ship and beyond it, her colleagues fighting to stay afloat. She swam towards the wreckage, grabbing onto a piece of floating debris. She also instructed others to hold something so they could stay together. One by one, the team gathered around the makeshift raft of debris. James clutched a waterproof bag, which he had managed to grab as the ship went under. Inside were a few crucial supplies, such as a first aid kit, small amounts of food, and a handheld radio which would come in handy in such a period. Marcus assesses their situation, and they try to improve by using the small kit with James. While they inventoried their supplies, Emily's face suddenly went pale. When Rachel looked concerned, she beckoned at her to look. Rachel followed Emily's gaze and saw a fin slicing through the water. Then another, and another. They were in the midst of a shark feeding ground. They were right in the middle of what they wanted to research. The irony was not lost on them. They had come to study sharks and found themselves in a perilous situation, surrounded by the creatures they sought to understand. Their only weapon is their knowledge of shark behavior, and they must put that to good use. The group formed a tight circle, using the floating debris to create a barrier between themselves and the sharks. Rachel and Emily took the lead, sharing insights on shark behavior. As the hours passed, the sharks circled but kept their distance, more curious than aggressive. The team took turns keeping watch, maintaining a vigilant eye on the predators. While they waited for unforeseen help, the night fell and the temperature dropped. The darkness added another layer of fear to their predicament. The sharks were still invisible but ever present, their movements detectable only by the occasional ripple or bump against the debris. Rachel knew they needed to stay positive to keep morale up, so she started a conversation about what each of them would do when they escaped the death situation they were in. The question was first thrown at James. He forced a smile and said a vast burger would be a gift to celebrate another chance at life. Marcus replied with a hot shower and a sleep like there was nothing to do, while Emily said she'd take a break from the ocean and try other adventures. The conversation helped distract them from their immediate fears, but the night was long and unforgiving. Dawn brought relief as the light returned, but their situation remained dire. Rachel was the first to notice a change in the sharks' behavior. They seemed more agitated, swimming faster and coming closer to the group. She knew this was a bad sign. Then they saw a more enormous shark, its massive body gliding through the water with a predatory grace. It was the dominant shark in the area, and its presence had unsettled the others. The team huddled closely as that was the only way they could think. The shark circled them, its dark eyes assessing the strange cluster of humans and debris. It made a few tentative passes, each time getting closer. Time had dragged on, and the sun was climbing higher in the sky. Dehydration and fatigue were setting in, and Rachel knew they couldn't hold out much longer without help. As despair began, Marcus noticed something on the horizon, a boat. They didn't believe it initially, but the small dot on the horizon grew larger, heading straight towards them. The team waved frantically, shouting for help. As the boat approached, they could see it was a rescue vessel, alerted by their earlier distress signal. The rescue team quickly pulled them aboard, assessing their condition and providing water and blankets. Rachel felt relief wash over her as they sped towards safety. Back on solid ground, the team was debriefed and given medical attention. They were exhausted and shaken, but grateful to be alive. Their knowledge and teamwork had kept them alive despite a terrifying ordeal. In the following days, their story spread through the scientific community and beyond. They were hailed for their survival and ability to apply their expertise in a life-or-death situation. The experience had bonded them in a way few others could understand, and they emerged from the ordeal with a renewed sense of purpose. Reflecting on their ordeal, Rachel realized that their brush with death had given them a deeper appreciation for the creatures they studied. The sharks, so often misunderstood and feared, had been both a threat and a testament to the delicate balance of the ocean's ecosystem. Returning to their research, the team continued their work with a newfound respect for the power and unpredictability of the sea. They knew that the knowledge they gained could help protect both humans and sharks, fostering a greater understanding of the intricate dance between predator and prey. The small coastal town of Liguria in Italy was excited as it prepared for its annual fishing festival. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, stalls lined the streets, and the aroma of grilled seafood wafted through the air. This festival was the year's highlight, drawing visitors from around to celebrate the town's rich maritime heritage. The festival's highlight was the grand fishing competition, a test of skill and patience where fishermen from all over vied to catch the biggest fish. This year was no different. The morning of the festival dawned bright and clear, with the smell of salt water mixing with the aroma of freshly baked goods from the vendor stalls lining the docks. Boats of all sizes bobbed gently in the harbor, their owners prepping rods and checking tackle, eager to win the trophy. As the horn sounded to signal the start of the competition, boats sped off to their favorite fishing spots. The air was filled with shouts of encouragement, laughter, and the occasional splash as lines hit the water. Hours passed and fish were caught, some small and some sizable, but none seemed likely to win the trophy. The crowd on the shore grew anxious, eager for news of a record-breaking catch. Then, as the sun descended, a sudden commotion broke out on the water. Chiesa, a young fisherman new to the competition, had hooked something massive. His rod bent nearly double, and his boat rocked violently as he struggled to reel in the unseen giant. Excitement rippled through the crowd. Could this be the fish of the festival? As Chiesa battled with his catch, the water around his boat erupted in a frenzy. Cheers turned to gasps of horror as a dark, unmistakable shape surfaced. It wasn't a fish, but a shark drawn to the struggling creature on Chiesa's line. Before anyone could react, the shark lunged at the fish, its mighty jaws snapping shut just feet from Chiesa's boat. The force of the attack threw him off balance, and he tumbled into the water. Panic swept through the spectators as rescue boats raced towards him. Fishermen and onlookers held their breath, hearts pounding, as Chiesa flailed in the water. A rescue boat reached him in the nick of time, pulling him from the sea just as the shark circled back, curious but ultimately uninterested in the human now safely aboard. Other participants quickly directed their boats to the shore as everyone struggled to escape any menacing shark. The incident spread among people present at the event. Among them was Dr. Anna Grant, a young marine biologist from a nearby research institute. She had come to Liguria to enjoy the festivities and perhaps collect some data on local marine life. Anna had always been fascinated by the ocean, and her passion led her to study marine biology, eventually specializing in shark behavior. As Anna wandered through the festival before the incident, she noticed the lively atmosphere. Families strolled through the streets, children played by the docks, and fishermen proudly displayed their best catches. Yet, amidst the laughter and merriment, there was a growing sense of unease. At first, Anna couldn't quite place it, but it gnawed at her. Later, after the incident, she overheard a group of fishermen talking in hushed tones at a local cafe. The conversation revealed there had been 3 shark attacks in the past week, and with the latest one, it had become alarming and unusually frequent. Anna's curiosity was piqued, and she introduced herself to the group, learning that the attacks had occurred near the old pier just outside the bay. Determined to investigate, Anna rented a small boat and set off towards the pier with her equipment. The calm sea and golden sunlight did little to ease her concern. Upon arrival, she observed a school of fish behaving erratically, which prompted her to lower her underwater camera. The camera's feed revealed a giant bull shark, a species known for its aggressive nature and unusual presence so close to shore. But why were they here in such numbers? Anna realized she needed more data. She decided to take water samples and noted the temperature and salinity levels. She also collected a fish sample, hoping to find clues in their behavior. In town, Anna analyzed her findings in the small makeshift lab she had set up in her rented cottage. The results were troubling. The water temperature was slightly higher than usual, and the fish showed signs of stress and infection. Something was disrupting the marine ecosystem, drawing the sharks closer to shore. Anna knew she couldn't solve this alone. She needed the local fishermen's knowledge and experience. She returned to the cafe where she had first met Flavio and found him discussing the situation with a group of concerned townspeople. Anna explained her findings to Flavio, a seasoned fisherman, and a group of concerned townspeople. Together, they devised a plan to investigate the source of the pollution. Over the next few days, they scoured the coastline and the river feeding into the bay, uncovering several sources of contamination. Some of the sources of the pollution are an old factory upstream, illegally dumping waste into the river, several abandoned boats in the bay, leaking fuel and chemicals, and residential areas with improper waste disposal practices. Armed with evidence, Anna contacted local authorities and environmental agencies, pushing for immediate cleanup. The townspeople rallied together, and as the cleanup began, shark sightings near the shore gradually decreased. The festival continued with heightened caution, and Anna monitored the situation closely. Due to the revelation, the festival has been wound down quickly so the cleanup will be effective. Anna and Flavio reflected on their success. They had faced a crisis and emerged stronger, committed to protecting their environment. In the days that followed, cleanup efforts intensified. The polluting factory was shut down and plans were made to restore the river and bay. The town council implemented stricter regulations and fishermen continued to monitor the waters. Anna's research gained attention, and she was invited to present her findings at various conferences, advocating for better environmental practices. Back in Liguria, life gradually returned to normal. The festival ended without further incident, and residents became more aware of the need to safeguard their environment. The sun rose over the remote, pristine waters of Honol's Beach in Hawaii, casting a golden light on the crystal-clear sea. This idyllic location was the perfect setting for the World Freediving Championship, an event that had drawn the world's best divers to its depths. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation as competitors prepared for the high-stakes challenge. Among them was Elena Rossi, a seasoned freediver known for grace and endurance. She had trained for years, honing her ability to dive deep on a single breath. Elena felt a familiar thrill as she surveyed the competition site. The water was calm, the visibility exceptional, and the marine life abundant, a freediver's paradise. The world's best freedivers arrived at Holly Bay, each eager to test their limits in the pristine waters. The remote location was chosen for its clear visibility and rich marine life, making it an ideal setting for the high-stakes competition. The divers spent the first day familiarizing themselves with the area, performing warm-up dives and preparing their equipment. As the event began, divers took turns descending into the blue abyss, each striving to reach greater depths and hold their breath longer than their rivals. Safety divers and judges monitored every dive closely, ensuring strict adherence to the competition's rules. Elena's turn came, and she stepped onto the platform, breathing deeply to prepare her body for the dive. She focused on the rhythm of her breath, calming her mind and slowing her heart rate. With a final deep inhale, she submerged, kicking powerfully and gliding into the underwater world. The descent was smooth, her movements fluid and controlled. She passed the markers indicating her depth: 30 meters, 40 meters, 50 meters. At 60 meters, she turned, beginning her ascent. The return to the surface was always the most challenging part, but Elena's training paid off. She maintained her composure and reached the surface with a smile, her lungs burning but victorious. As the day progressed, divers continued to impress with their feats of endurance and skill. But amid the camaraderie and competition, one of the competitors, Eric Johansson, had not resurfaced from his dive. Concern turned to alarm as the minutes ticked by. The safety divers immediately initiated a search, scouring the area where Eric was last seen. Elena joined the effort, her heart heavy with worry. Eric was an experienced diver, and for him to go missing was unthinkable. As she descended again, she scanned the depths, hoping to see her missing colleague. The visibility in Honol's Beach was excellent, but even so, the ocean could be an unforgiving and mysterious place. Elena and the other divers fanned out, searching methodically. During this search, they encountered something unexpected and terrifying: a giant, aggressive shark patrolling the area. The bull shark was known for its unpredictable behavior and tendency to enter shallow waters. Its presence so close to the competition site was alarming. Elena signaled to the other divers, her heart pounding. They needed to regroup and come up with a plan, both to find Eric and to ensure their safety. On the surface, the divers discussed their options. The competition organizers, aware of the shark's presence, considered suspending the event, but the search for Eric couldn't wait. Elena and other experienced divers volunteered to continue the search despite the danger because they couldn't leave him in the depths. The team agreed, and with renewed determination, they returned to the water. This time, they were armed with spears and shark deterrent devices. The mood was tense, and each diver was acutely aware of their risks. Elena descended again, the cool water enveloping her. She moved carefully, her eyes scanning every shadow and crevice. The underwater landscape was beautiful but deceptive, and the shark's presence added an element of fear that was hard to shake. Minutes felt like hours as they searched. Then Elena spotted something, a flash of color against the blue. It was Eric's dive suit caught on a rocky outcrop. She swam towards him, praying he was still alive. Eric was unconscious but breathing shallowly. Elena quickly freed him from the rocks and signaled to the others. They formed a protective circle around him as they began the ascent, the shark still a looming threat. As they ascended, the shark reappeared, circling them with unnerving curiosity. Elena's heart raced, but she focused on the task at hand. They needed to get Eric to the surface safely. One of the divers later used a shark deterrent, emitting an electric pulse that momentarily confused the predator, giving them precious seconds to move. The group reached the surface, and Eric was immediately taken to the medical team. Elena and the others emerged from the water, exhausted but relieved. The danger wasn't over, but they had saved their friend. In the aftermath, the competition was suspended. The organizers and local authorities decided to investigate why the shark had been so aggressive and close to shore. They discovered that recent illegal fishing activity had disrupted the natural balance of the bay. All the sea creatures the shark fed on have been fished out, so these predators got attracted to the shore for food. Elena stayed in Hawaii for several days, helping with the investigation and advocating for stricter protections for the marine environment. The incident highlighted the delicate balance of the ecosystem and the importance of respecting and preserving it. Eric recovered slowly, grateful for his fellow divers' efforts. The experience had been harrowing, but it had also brought the community of freed divers closer together. They had faced a formidable challenge and emerged stronger, their bond forged in the ocean's depths. Elena reflected on the events as the divers prepared to leave Hali Bay. The ocean was a place of beauty, wonder, danger, and unpredictability. The experience had tested their limits and reminded them of the respect and caution required to explore its depths. Elena knew she would continue diving, driven by her passion for the ocean and its mysteries. But she would also carry the lessons learned in Hali Bay, a reminder of nature's power and the human spirit's resilience. The night sky was a velvet canvas with stars, and the lavish yacht party was in full swing. On board an exquisite yacht was an elite crowd of socialites, business magnates, and celebrities. The gentle lapping of the waves against the hull starkly contrasted with the laughter and music emanating from the deck. The party had been meticulously planned by its host, Victor Carmichael, a wealthy entrepreneur known for his extravagant taste. Guests mingled on the deck, sipping champagne and enjoying gourmet hors d'oeuvres. The yacht was adorned with elegant decorations, and a live band played a mix of jazz and contemporary hits. The atmosphere was electric, a perfect blend of luxury and leisure. As the night wore on, the alcohol flowed freely, and some guests, feeling adventurous, decided to take a late-night swim. Among them was Derek Lawson, a young tech mogul who had quickly risen to fame and fortune. Derek, always the life of the party, stripped down to his swim trunks and dove into the dark, inviting waters. Several others followed suit, their laughter echoing across the water. A few minutes later, a scream pierced the night. It was Derek thrashing in the water. Panic spread like wildfire among the guests as they realized something was wrong. The spotlights from the yacht illuminated the scene, and what they saw made their blood run cold. Sharks circled Derek, their dorsal fins cutting through the water with menacing precision. Although everyone could clearly see them, they stood at a standstill until one of them screamed and chaos ensued. The crew, trained for emergencies but not expecting such a scenario, sprang into action. The captain, also in charge of the yacht's technical aspects, quickly acted. He grabbed a life preserver and threw it toward Derek, but the sharks were closing in fast. Victor, the host, also had something to say as he yelled at Derek to grab something. The crew scrambled, and a thick rope was tossed into the water within moments. Derek, eyes wide with terror, managed to grab hold of it. The guests and crew pulled with all their might, hauling him towards the yacht. As they did, the sharks became more aggressive, sensing an easy meal. Just as they were about to pull Derek aboard, a loud bang reverberated through the yacht. The engine had failed. The lights flickered, and then everything went dark. The yacht was dead in the water, and the sense of helplessness was palpable. But while they were in horror about that and needed to calm down, another scream from Derek jolted them back. From there, they knew they had to get Derek out of the water first because the shark had launched another attack at his thigh. The crew and guests worked together, pulling Derek up the side of the yacht. Just as his feet left the water, the shark lunged again, but its teeth only snapped shut inches from his legs. They managed to pull him aboard, but Derek was in shock, shivering uncontrollably. Victor urged the captain to get the engine running, suggesting they check the engine room for flooding, and decided to accompany him while instructing the rest of the crew to stay alert and monitor the water. As Victor and the captain made their way to the engine room, the rest of the crew and guests huddled together on the deck, the weight of their situation sinking in. They were stranded, surrounded by sharks, with no way to call for help. The radio had gone dead with the power outage, and their cell phones had no signal this far out at sea. The situation in the engine room was dire. The captain opened a hatch to reveal seawater flooding the compartment. Grabbing a manual bilge pump, Victor joined the captain, and they worked tirelessly to pump water out of the engine room, their muscles straining with the effort. On deck, the tension was palpable. Every splash or ripple in the water sent shivers down their spines. The crew kept a close watch, ready to defend against any sharks that got too close. They armed themselves with whatever they could find: oars, deck chairs, even bottles. Wrapped in a blanket, Derek sat trembling, muttering that he won't be able to make it alive. He had sustained a wound, and with no first aid equipment available, they used torn clothes as a makeshift tourniquet. But it wasn't enough to stop the bleeding. As the minutes turned into hours, the captain and Victor finally managed to pump out enough water to access the engine. He checked it and let Victor know they needed some tools. Victor, not one to give up easily, asked for what was missing so they could improvise. They rummaged through the yacht's storage, gathering tools and equipment. Meanwhile, those on the deck have resorted to using the yacht's emergency flares to try and signal any nearby ships. They took turns firing flares into the night sky, their bright light briefly illuminating the sea before fading into the darkness. An hour passed, and the mood grew increasingly desperate. When hope seemed to disappear, one of the flares illuminated a distant shape. Another yacht was approaching, drawn by the flares. Cheers erupted from the deck as the vessel drew nearer. As the rescue yacht approached, it became clear they were still far away. Victor knew they couldn't afford to wait passively. They needed to make their yacht visible and reachable. He directed the crew to gather any materials that could serve as torches. The guests also contributed by creating makeshift lights from clothing and flammable liquids. Standing at the edge of the deck, Victor waved a torch high above his head. Seeing the signal, the approaching yacht altered its course to head directly towards them. As it drew closer, the captain of the rescue vessel shouted through a megaphone, instructing them to prepare for a tow. The rescue ship, a sturdy craft equipped for emergencies, skillfully maneuvered alongside the yacht. Ropes were thrown, and the crew quickly secured the vessels together. With a collective effort, they began to tow the stranded yacht toward safety. Back on land, the ordeal was far from over. Derek was taken to the hospital for treatment and observation, his ordeal in the water having taken a significant toll on him. The other guests, while physically unscathed, were visibly shaken. News of the incident spread quickly, drawing media attention and concern from those who had not attended the party. Victor addressed the media. He praised the bravery and teamwork of everyone involved, from the crew to the guests, and expressed his gratitude to the rescue ship that had come to their aid. He vowed to investigate the engine failure and ensure such an incident would never happen again. In the weeks that followed, the yacht underwent extensive repairs and upgrades. Victor spared no expense in ensuring the yacht was equipped with the latest safety features and backup systems. He also implemented new emergency protocols, determined to prevent future crises.